Good morning. Welcome to your program, Your Agenda. I'm your host, Cito Beltran, thanking you for watching our program here on Cignal TV, One News Channels 8 and 250, as well as on the Cignal Play app. Thank you to those of you who catch us via Facebook and, of course, on YouTube. And thank you to PLDT for their home fiber optic internet. Kahit saan, maaasahan. Thank you. Today is August 30, 2023, and I am told that tonight, barring cloudy skies because of the weather, I am told that this evening is going to be one of two nights where we are going to see the blue moon. An unusually large picture of the moon or a view of the moon because it will be closer to the earth. Anyway, thank you for being with us this morning. Today, we are going to have a special program. We are going to have a lecture from someone who can teach us about the law, about road rage, about carrying firearms, etc. He is someone that I have known through the years, but I only recently discovered was the brother pala of one of my former lady basketball players. I will tell you more of that later. But before we go any further, I do hope you are all healthy. I pray you have a great day. And please listen in to our daily starter. And it comes from educator and author Booker T. Washington. Few things help an individual more than to place responsibility on him and let him know that you trust him. I will attest to this pag ako po ay pinagtitiwalaan. Ako ay binibigyan ng responsibilidad. Nung ako ay bata, ginagawa ko lahat ng magagawa ko to succeed at that task. And you as a parent, as a mentor, as a boss, you will probably get more out of the people around you by helping them with a responsibility and entrusting them with responsibility instead of constantly watching over their shoulder or criticizing what they do. Pagtiwalaan nyo, and when the need comes, then teach them or train them. But that's our daily starter. Let's go quickly to our news on the front page. A quick review of today's news. The front page of the Philippine Star, August 30, 2023. It's a Wednesday. The headline, sadly, Albay Village Chief Cotabato Bet killed. Violence mars the COC filing all over the country. And there you go. It's a bad start when blood is shed. Barangay captain lang po ang pinaglalabanan dito. Barangay and SK elections lang ito. Hindi pa nga eleksyon, filing pa lang, patayan na. So, yan po, another failure of intelligence in a country where so much intelligence funds in the billions is being appropriated. Meanwhile, Marcos orders agencies to control rice prices. Okay. Kayo na po ang mag-comment kasi yung rice prices ninyo by next month, baka plus 10 na naman. Meanwhile, that big cute photo at the top of the Philippine Star, photo of children, of students of Aurora A. Quezon Elementary School in Malate, attending the first day of classes yesterday, while the teachers lament worsening education system. The country's education system has worsened under the present administration, according to members of the Alliance of Concerned Teachers who held a morning protest in Mendiola. To the side of that, we have two photos of Jamie Malonzo and Gunner Renz Abando of Gilas Filipinas, who both did performed so well yesterday, but unfortunately, all the valiant efforts of our players were no match to the power, the skill, the youth, and the stamina of the Italian team. And unfortunately, marami pong nagdidiskurso dyan, but we have to face the facts, you know. We are against the land of the giants. Medyo lugi tayo dyan until we solve the malnutrition and the stunting in the Philippines. We can only dream. Meanwhile, Goring exits, Hana enters the Philippines today. Okay, Typhoon Goring is on its way out, but strong winds and heavy rains continue in some parts of Luzon as heavy rains, okay, continue as tropical storm Hana is forecast to enter the Philippine area of responsibility. So wala pa po tayong relief pero thank you kasi kahapon I saw in the newscast in the evening our dams are filled, at least most of the dams are filled up. Okay, meanwhile, let's have some good news. Hotel 101 to rise in Hokkaido. Mang Inasal founder and Double Dragon Corporation chairman Edgar Injap Sia II, Jollibee founder and Double Dragon co-chairman Tony Tankat-kyong, Niseko Mayor Kenya Katayama, as well as Kuchan Hokkaido Mayor Kazushi Monji lead the groundbreaking of a 482-room Hotel 101 at a 1.17-hectare property in Hokkaido, Japan. It is the first ever Filipino homegrown hotel chain to expand outside the Philippines. That seems to be the direction being taken by a number of businessmen. I know so many people who are heading out to Portugal, Spain, putting up business kasi doon daw malaki pa ang potential to make money or succeed in business. Meanwhile, our topic today, before we start the interview, victim of gun-toting ex-cop urged, come out. Magpakita ka na, kapatid. Huwag kang matakot. Marami ka ng kuyang magtatanggol sa'yo, lalo na yung bisita namin today. The cyclist shown in a viral video being physically and verbally attacked by a gun-wielding man in a road rage incident should come out in the open if he wants his attacker, who turned out to be a former policeman, to be held accountable and possibly charged with more criminal cases, according to Chief PNP General Benjamin Acorda. Meanwhile, last piece, pero ito po malungkot. Please bear with me. Out of respect, allow me to read this in full. Veteran broadcaster Mike Enriquez has passed away at age 71. GMA Network announced last night the passing of its broadcast personality, Mike Enriquez, one of the anchors of its flagship newscast, 24 Horas, and host of its public affairs program, Investigador. He was 71. And please allow us to express our condolences to the family of Sir Mike Enriquez and, of course, his associates at GMA7. Just a side note before I close on the news items, Mike Enriquez was a very decent individual, a true professional. In the few times that I was really down professionally, he was there offering help, offering an opportunity. He in fact encouraged me at the time when I was just like wondering if I should go on, and he said, "Tuloy lang laban, bata. And I will always remember, and during his time of his kidney transplant, we were texting each other. My family and I were praying for him. And sadly, we don't live forever. We are not promised tomorrow, but at least it is good to know that you are remembered with love, with respect, and we honor you, Mike Enriquez. Thank you for your service to the country. Okay, let's go for a quick break. And when we come back, ito po, may lecture na tayo, may legal case pa yata. Okay, we will return here on Agenda.
Quezon City Mayor Joy Belmonte has ordered an investigation on how the Quezon City Police District or QCPD handled the case of former cop Wilfredo Gonzales. He is the driver who was caught on video harassing a cyclist by hitting the ladder and issuing threats with a gun. In an interview on 1PH's Sa Totoo Lang, Belmonte expressed doubts on Gonzales' claims that he already settled the issue with the biker.
Para sa akin, parang nakakagulat naman na hindi ka naman tinutukan, pero kinasahan ka ng baril, sinapak ka, tapos makikipag-aregla ko ng ganyan-ganyan lang, na not under duress or not under coercion.
The QCPD has already filed a complaint of alarm and scandal against Gonzales. His driver's license and permit to own and carry firearms outside of his residence have also been revoked. With all of these developments, the Philippine National Police is still waiting for the cyclist to execute a complaint about the incident. Let's further discuss the developments of this case on today's agenda.
Attorney Raymond Fortun is one of the highly regarded lawyers in the country. A product of the prestigious UP College of Law, Fortun handled high-profile clients ranging from celebrities like Vicky Bello to political figures like Datu Andal Ampatuan Jr. and former President Joseph Estrada. He is the founder and managing partner of the Fortun and Santos Law Offices.
Attorney, welcome. Good morning. Thank you for joining us today.
Hi, Cito. Good morning. Also, just a briefer condolences to the family of the late Mike Enriquez.
Yes, we all feel that. Now, Attorney, let's get on with our program. And the subject matter, of course, starts with you posting on Facebook the appeal for netizens to identify a certain individual who was caught on video essentially loading his gun and hitting a cyclist. And it was posted that I was given the impression you are a cyclist as well, and that you are part of the community, and therefore the community wants justice on this issue.
Yes, that's true. My favorite saint, Saint Josemaria Escriva, has always ejaculated in the morning, Lord, that I may see. So, like my favorite saint, we allow the Spirit to guide our lives. When I saw that video, it was brought to my attention by a friend who is also a cyclist. No, I was totally shocked, outraged, and I felt, even if I did not know this person, even if I had not spoken to the cyclist, I felt it was my duty, and the Spirit moved me. He said, "No, find out who this person is, find out where he lives, so that if the cyclist decides to pursue a case, then at the very least, we would be ready to file the appropriate complaint in the proper court."
Okay, now what is the situation? Apparently, this thing has snowballed into a social media controversy, and right now there are a lot of issues being raised. So, from the very start, as a lawyer, how would you address this matter if the cyclist were to call you and say, Attorney Fortun, payag na po ako, bahala na kayo, ano ba ang dapat kong gawin? How would you begin handling this matter?
All right. But of course, I need to get his statement, get all the facts straight, from beginning to end, even meaning where he came from, what was his purpose, in what direction was he going, and then when was the first time that he encountered this particular respondent? That's what I would call him. Around what time was that, the location, and then move on from there. What happened next, and then what happened next. So once that I'm able to establish the facts according to him, then I'd start looking now for what we call object evidence, yung mga hindi lamang yung testimony ng tao. So in this particular instance, you had a video which was posted by a vlogger, and apparently that there is a supposed handwritten agreement that was executed by the cyclist and the assailant before the Galas police station. So I will take a look at that. I will put everything together. And then lastly, before I actually put everything down into writing, I will try to find out the bona fides of the respondent. What could have compelled him to act in such a brazen manner? Where did that gun come from? Did it have a license? What permits did he have to enable him to actually bring out the gun outside of his house and bring it out of the public? And then I will take a look at his service record. I will take a look at his service record and see what is or was his involvement in government. If he was still a member of government, what positions did he have? What were the reasons why he was separated? I will have a complete picture first, and then I will put now everything into writing, and then file the appropriate complaint before the prosecutor's office of the that has jurisdiction where the crime was committed.
Okay, allow me to just post maybe what ifs, as they say. The presumption here is this person, Mr. Gonzales Bashad, the gun-toting individual, is, a normal thinking individual. I presume that at some point before the video was taken, there was an altercation. Let's just say that the biker pissed off Mr. Gonzales, maybe gave him the dirty finger, or maybe, antagonized Mr. Gonzales, and perhaps Mr. Gonzales was already having a bad day, and that was the last thing he needed, a trigger. Is that reason, or is that as an excuse? Because I remember watching a video at the Galas Police Prison, and Mr. Gonzales said, napanood ninyo yung video, pero hindi naman nyo nakita yung mga nangyari bago nun. So, presuming that there was an incident of road rage or cursing or dirty finger or something, or baka tinira, sinuntok yung kotse ni Mr. Gonzales, was Mr. Gonzales justified to chase the guy?
Definitely not, Cito. Okay, Because if let's do it step by step, assuming that there was some altercation and there was an exchange of words.
Mhm.
You know, we probably have had that at one time in our lives with somebody. And did it amount to anybody pulling a gun out of his waist and then cocking it? And the answer is no, because if somebody curses you, you can curse back. If
Mhm.
somebody tries to throw a fist at you, you fight back with your own fists. We have a principle in law. It is called self-defense. And in cases of self-defense, there are three elements. Unlawful aggression, okay, that you had not committed or done anything in order to trigger it, meaning you did not, you were not the cause for whatever happens next. And then lastly is that the reasonable means in order to defend oneself is employed. And there you have it, the reasonableness of the means. So if, for example, if somebody puts up his fists, you can't pull out a gun because the means in order to defend yourself is not equal to the threat to your person. If somebody hits your car, let's assume that this cyclist had hit his car. What was hit? I mean, what did he use for to hit it? Was it just an open palm? Did he hit his entire bicycle on the vehicle?
Mhm.
So your reaction, your reaction to whatever is done to you must be commensurate to whatever was done. So
Mhm.
well, as you can see, and in the video, you had an unarmed cyclist. Did not even have a weapon in his hand, not even a screwdriver.
Mhm.
So for Mr. Gonzales to pull out his gun, hit with an open palm the back of the cyclist's head, and then subsequently draw his firearm and cock it are totally beyond what you may consider as self-defense. And he is now clearly an aggressor, for which there are very numerous provisions of our revised penal code for which he can be held accountable for.
Okay, let's go into the penal code or the laws or the provisions, because there was a question of what should have been filed. Kasi the Galas Police or the QCPD are filing alarm and scandal. And some people said, myself included, teka, binunutan mo, kinasahan mo ng barel, you may not have intended to shoot or kill the person, but I would call that grave threat, serious threat. What would you classify it, attorney?
Yes, I totally agree with you. The crime committed in that particular instance where a gun was pulled out of the belt and then cocked, even if the same was not pointed at the person, is already a grave threat. You don't have to point the gun to the person in order to establish your intent to use the gun in order to intimidate. In this particular instance, grave threat was in fact committed even if the gun was not pointed. Alarms and scandals is a separate provision of the revised penal code. It is usually, in layman's terms, pambubulabog. Okay?
Mhm.
And that's when alarms and scandals would come in. But, well, again, I think, Cito, what is more important here is in any criminal prosecution, you need one person, the complainant. You need the complainant. The police cannot file and then expect that the case will stand up on its own. Why? Because at the time that the crime was committed, the police wasn't there. None of these policemen who had executed and filed the complaint for alarms and scandals were present at the time of the commission of the crime. Therefore, whatever testimony that they will render later on in court will be considered as, everybody knows this, hearsay evidence. It's hearsay. Now, what about the video? The police can say, well, we saw the video, and that should be enough. I have to disagree. We all have to recognize the fact that the video is an object evidence, and therefore
Mhm.
you have to establish its existence and authenticity. Now, okay,
Mhm.
you saw the video, we saw it on Facebook. Was that the real video? Was it somehow spliced? Who was the
Mhm.
person who uploaded it? What equipment or implement was utilized in order to record that particular video? Did he make any amendments or edits to the same? Was there any other portion of that video which could be a defense for the accused? All of
Okay.
these questions could not be answered by anybody except two people. One, the victim, and number two, the vlogger. I am
Mhm.
absolutely certain that when the QCPD filed this case for alarms and scandals, neither of the two individuals who are supposed to be eyewitnesses to the crime had executed an affidavit in support of the complaint. I have very serious doubts about the validity of this particular complaint, and even if it is filed in court for one reason or another, that the prosecution will be able to obtain a judgment of conviction against the accused.
Okay, now let me backtrack a little. These parties reportedly met at the police precinct.
Yes.
Does the presence of a police statement, a record in the logbook of the Galas Police Precinct constitute legal basis for the police to file? Because I get your point. The four policemen who filed the alarm and scandal don't have legal personality in this case. They weren't there, as you pointed out. But Mr. Gonzales went to the police precinct and surrendered himself. Presumably admitted that the incident did happen and that it was settled. So what about those? And ladies and gentlemen, I am not taking sides on this matter, although like Attorney Fortun, I was outraged by the violence shown by Mr. Gonzales. But for legal purposes and for education, Attorney Fortun, they went to the police precinct together, and then later Mr. Gonzales showed up, surrendered himself when everything became a scandal. Doesn't that constitute as evidence?
And no, we take a look at that document that was executed at the Galas police station. It will show that indeed Mr. Gonzales and the cyclist had gone there. How the cyclist was brought, I am very certain that it was by force. And when they went there, they filed what are known as counteracting complaints. Mr. Gonzales filed a complaint for reckless imprudence and damages. And indeed, in the blotter, it shows that the cyclist claims that there was a grave threat. It is on record. The problem is this: there is no mention whatsoever of how the grave threat occurred. Nothing. All what was mentioned was allegedly the damages sustained on the Kia Rio vehicle being driven by Mr. Gonzales. And then
Okay.
after that narration, that very brief narration, it is now written that the parties have agreed to settle. There's not even any mention of what the terms of settlement was. The video will clearly show that the cyclist was hit on the back of the head, that there was a gun that was pulled on him. In this particular instance, would it be reasonable to expect that if there was going to be any settlement, it would actually be Mr. Gonzales who should be paying for damages? No, there was no such payment made by Mr. Gonzales. In fact, the cyclist later on in a text reveals that he actually was compelled and forced to pay 500 pesos to Mr. Gonzales. Binato ka na, kinasahan na ng barel, and yet he was the one who was forced to pay 500 pesos. Is that a fair settlement? We all know, by any reasonable standard of an ordinary layman, that is unfair and unreasonable. That is not a valid settlement. It is a settlement obtained under duress in the presence of the home court, because it was done in a police station without any lawyer to assist the cyclist at all. That's a home court agreement and is therefore voidable.
Okay, for purposes of educating our friends in the police, because I do have quite a number of friends in the PNP. I have trained police officers for media in the PNP. Regarding that settlement, because you pointed out there was an incident, there was an altercation, there was assault, a case of assault, there is a case of grave threats, there is a supposedly reckless imprudence and damage to property. Now, do you just put the two boys in the room and tell them, okay, children, you settle while we, the police, watch here? Is that legal? Was that correct? What should the police have done?
All right. So what the police should have done would be to get the separate statements from both complainants. In this particular case, you had both of them being complainants, one against the other. So it would be a he said, she said kind of thing. And since the police were not present at the time of this incident, the best that the police could have done was to what is known as refer it for further investigation. So you get the statements of the two and then refer it for further investigation. Let the two of them go and then submit it. Bring it or file it before the prosecutor's office of the city, and then let now the prosecutor deal with it in accordance with due process rules. No, the thing in this particular instance is that take away the video, remove the video. That cyclist had no evidence, absolutely no evidence of what Mr. Gonzales had done. What evidence there was probably the scratches on the vehicle of Mr. Gonzales. So you have a situation where Mr. Gonzales would be able to prove, oh yan oh, tingnan mo oh, may gasgas yung kotse ko. Oh yan, tingnan mo oh, may pukpok yung kotse ko na yupi. While on the other hand, what does the poor cyclist have? Nothing. He did not have any witness. He did not have anybody who will say, binatukan ako. He will not have anybody to attest to the fact that Mr. Gonzales, an ex-cop, had pulled out his gun, cocked it, and in a threatening manner, probably intimidated him. That's a very unfair situation for an ordinary person, for a poor person.
So
let's. The police should at the very least have really just let, okay, we'll get your statements and then we'll refer it to the prosecutor's office. That should have been done.
Okay, so statements, no settlement inside the prison. Kasi that is a normal activity of our friends in the PNP. Na mag-ayos na lang kayo, pwede naman pag-usapan yan, etc. And of course, well, it's a good thing when Filipinos are use culture to manage issues. But in this case, medyo seryoso ito. So dapat, sorry, you can, the thing about settlement, kasi piece of paper, I couldn't believe that, a handwritten piece of paper. First, you're supposed to show that now. You're supposed to show that in court. If any case is filed, you have to show to the judge, Your Honor, this is the evidence, handwritten. Parang teka, papasabayan sa court of law, pinasulat mo kamay-kamay.
Yeah, pwede naman, Cito. The handwritten agreement is no different from a typewritten one, provided that the document, the agreement itself, was exercised freely and voluntarily. And that's why it's very, very important, especially for the police, to ensure that the parties are on equal footing. Meaning that here in this particular instance, you very clearly, very clearly you can see an imbalance. You had a poor cyclist and you had a raging ex-cop. The police in Galas should have been careful to be as objective as possible so that there will be no tainting or any accusation that they had acted to the prejudice of one as against the other. How
Okay.
can anybody now accept the fact that this was a valid settlement when it happened in a police station where everybody present were of the same, well, came from the same service as the police? And there
Okay.
is a clear balance. They should have been more careful.
Okay, let's go for a quick break, Attorney Fortun. And when we return, I'd like to pursue the other points that were raised, like the car of Mr. Gonzales was used to chase the individual, to cut him off. Does that compromise as part of the commission of a crime? If grave threats would qualify as a crime, or is it a civil matter? We'll take a break. We'll be right back here on Agenda.
In his hunt for justice for the cyclist who was threatened by former cop Wilfredo Gonzales, attorney Raymond Fortun said that if Gonzales is still connected with the government in any manner, he shall file a complaint for conduct unbecoming of a public official under Republic Act 6713. But what exactly does that law say? Under the act, also known as the Code of Conduct and Ethical Standards for Public Officials and Employees, public officials and employees shall perform and discharge their duties with the highest degree of excellence, professionalism, intelligence, and skill. Those violating this law shall be punished with a fine not exceeding the equivalent of 6 months' salary, or suspension not exceeding 1 year, or removal depending on the gravity of the offense after due notice and hearing by the appropriate body or agency. Attorney Fortun also said that he plans to furnish a copy of the video to the Senate President and the House Speaker so that lawmakers can use it for a possible congressional investigation or in aid of crafting new laws. How can this help bring justice? Let's discuss further on today's agenda.
Okay, welcome back, Attorney Raymond Fortun. Let's carry on with your lecture here on Agenda. And I'd like to touch on this issue about the gun because I, for one, don't carry a weapon because many of my friends and have experienced that. tumatapang ka pag may dala kang sandata or may dala kang baril, tumatapang ka o umiiksi ang pasensya mo. Now, in the case of Mr. Gonzales, apparently he was already dismissed from the service after retirement. Masakit po yung nangyari rin kay Mr. Gonzales. He retired at age 56 in 2016, but by 2018, he was stripped of all of his retirement benefits because of a case wherein he also pulled a gun on somebody and charges were filed, but the decision came 2 years after his retirement. Now, and he had to pay back the 2 years of retirement that he collected. Now, the thing that gets my attention here is why he was given a gun license and a permit to carry outside of residence, given the fact that he had a case and he was actually penalized for that. What is your view of this situation? Obviously, someone in the firearms unit dropped the ball.
Well, it's also possible, Cito, that he may not have disclosed that he had a pending case, a pending criminal case, no? It's possible. As well, these government personnel, they rely purely on the representations made by the applicant. Now, if they would be able to check properly, then they would be able to know about all of these cases that were filed. But well, sometimes things slip between the cracks. But very clearly, in the Public Act number 10591, the 7th requirement is that the applicant has not been convicted or is currently an accused in a pending criminal case before any court of law for a crime that is punishable with a penalty more than 2 years. No, so I actually have a summary of all of the criminal, administrative, and civil cases that have been filed against Mr. Gonzales, and as of 2006, and there are really quite a lot. There are quite a number of admin cases, and there are some cases that are pending before the Office of the City Prosecutor. Now, probably, and again, there is actually, as of 2006, there are 2 cases that are listed, both of them in Quezon City, and the status is ongoing trial. Ongoing trial. Now, if I were the one verifying and evaluating the application of Mr. Gonzales to obtain licenses for his guns, I would have probably inquired more. What are these cases all about? Because if, for example, the crime is something that does not involve moral turpitude. Let's say, you would accidentally run over somebody. Or probably some violation of some city ordinance that had nothing to do with one's reputation or character or psychological makeup or one's reputation. Then in such an instant, you'd probably allow him to be given a license so long as he is able to comply with all the other requirements in order to get a firearm.
Okay.
And what are these requirements? So of course, as I mentioned, that he must first not have been convicted of any crime involving moral turpitude. I think pasado naman si Mr. Gonzales dyan, because at that time there appears to not have been any conviction. He should have passed the psychiatric test administered by a PNP accredited psychologist. Let's assume that he was able to submit that. That he should have passed a drug test conducted by an accredited and authorized drug testing laboratory. Again, let's assume that he submitted the proper document for that. He passed a gun safety seminar, which is administered by the PNP or a registered and authorized gun club. He's a former police officer. I'm pretty sure that he would be able to pass that seminar. A fifth requirement is that he files.
Attorney, he failed that test.
Oh, he
The
failed.
fact, no, the fact that he pulled his gun at an unarmed individual, okay, because I recently went to a training facility and I spoke to the range instructor and mahigpit sila. And one of the no-nos is, wag mong bubunutin ang baril kung hindi mo kailangang gamitin. It is a mandatory rule on the range. Anyway,
Yes,
I'm just pointing that out.
Right. Thank you, Cito, for that. No, but you know naman, all that you need to do is just to show that you took the seminar. Now, later on, if it will be proven if what you had heard during the seminar actually went into one ear and then came out at the other. And well, obviously, no, the video shows that it didn't sink in. And probably even the fact that there were pending complaints against him, also for grave threats, also for the same reasons that he had somehow threatened somebody, no, which would somehow give you a red light already, or a warning, you know, that this person would indiscriminately be pulling out his firearm even if there was no danger or threat to his life. Okay, so once that a person has complied with all of these requirements, then there's really no reason for the Firearms and Explosives Office to deny you your right to bear arms, no? And considering that he's a former police officer.
Yeah. Okay. So we went through that because the reason I raised the background check, the thorough background check, is ordinary citizens. I tried that many years ago, and that's why I've given up on firearms a long time ago. The only reason I went to a range recently is to interview someone. And the reason I'm bringing it up in our conversation is because you are planning to speak with leaders of the Senate and the Congress for legislative agendas. Now, clearly, this is one of the things that need to be drilled into the firearms explosive group of the PNP, that they need to do even tougher background checks to former uniformed personnel, because ayan na nga, we've seen several cases where former or retired personnel have been involved in altercations with weapons. Anyway, going back to the case per se itself. So, what are your plans? I mean, you can't come in as a citizen of the Republic to file a case against Mr. Gonzales. And this issue, is this a crime or is this a civil case, criminal or civil matter?
Yes, as I had posted, no, the only thing that a citizen like myself can do is to file administrative cases, no, because in administrative complaints, then the quantum of evidence needed, meaning the amount, the substance, and the weight of evidence required in order to obtain a judgment is far less than in criminal cases. In criminal cases, you need to be able to prove the guilt of the accused beyond reasonable doubt. And the only the persons who would be able to establish that, obviously, would be the ones who have personal knowledge of the crime. Has to be personally there, have seen it, have heard everything, be able to testify all the other circumstances of somebody who had witnessed a crime. In civil cases and in administrative cases, that standard is not there. In fact, rules of evidence and technical rules of evidence are often disregarded if the purpose is merely just to establish just enough or substantial evidence to prove the liability.
But administrative cases are only for those who are in government, correct?
That is correct. Or if you are dealing with government. So, for example, like what I posted, if you have a driver's license, I can file a complaint to have your driver's license revoked because the video itself will show that you had driven the vehicle recklessly. So it would now be a reckless, a charge of reckless driving, which is an administrative offense. I can now also go to the Firearms and Explosives Office, which is an administrative body still, and ask for the revocation or the cancellation of his gun licenses and his permits to carry. I can also, on the other hand, if he is a member of government, and we have reason to believe that he currently holds office and is employed as a member of government, then that person can be charged before the ombudsman for violation of RA 6713 or the Accountability of Public Officers Law. Lastly,
Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
lastly, you can now ask for the Senate and the House of Representatives to conduct an investigation in aid of legislation, probably for purposes of crafting new laws or to amend existing laws to strengthen laws with regard to the issuances of permits to guns, laws with regard to safety of cyclists on bike lanes, laws with regard to the standards, other standards for the protection of the public.
Okay, well, what about for Mr. Gonzalez's side? Because the mayor of Quezon City wants her people to chase this guy down, file whatever can be filed, and then she also wants the Galas police to be investigated or checked regard how they handle the matter. The PNP wants to throw the kitchen sink at Mr. Gonzales. But on the other hand, I'm like, what about if Mr. Gonzales said no contest? How can I defend myself? How can, you put it already on social media. Every politician has jumped into this thing. Fortun even joined in. No contest na ako dito. Kasi I remember Attorney Raymond in my legal class in Mascom, there is a certain law where if someone has been subjected to undue publicity, parang wala akong laban pinablicize nyo na yung kaso, I can't get a fair trial.
Well, whether we like it or not, the social media is there and you'll have to deal with it. I'm pretty sure that I am very much aware of that, since I was involved in the impeachment trial as well as in the plunder trial of President Estrada 20 years ago. We had to deal with that problem even then. Did we ever raise our hands and say no contest? Well, actually, President Estrada did, if you'll recall. I think you were even present when he fired his lawyers. We all had to troop out. You and Miss Corina Sanchez were there and were interviewing ERAP at that particular time. We had to deal with it. But what did the Sandigan Bayan do? It still had to comply with due process. It had to give Mr. Estrada his right to his day in court. What did the Sandigan Bayan do? Okay, President Estrada, you fired all of your lawyers. We will hire lawyers for you. And then we will make sure that you will be given every opportunity to defend yourself. Whatever is happening outside, we're not going to listen to it. We're going to only evaluate the evidence on whatever is presented in court. That is the essence of an impartial trial. It does not matter what happens outside in social media. It doesn't matter if he has already been crucified in social media. It is a fact of reality. In today's age, judgments are made daily, whether it's the judgment is fair or not. But the accused has to deal with it, because that is the sign of the times. So at the end of the day, the accused will be found guilty or not guilty on the basis of evidence presented in court. So you have to rely purely on the integrity of the judge or judges who will be passing judgment on your cases.
Okay, now a few quick questions, because we seem to have missed, I missed a few questions regarding the vehicle. When you use your vehicle to chase down someone you have an issue with, kinat mo o binangga mo yung tao, does the vehicle become part of the crime? Because I know that there is a law also that any vehicle used in the commission of a crime is to be confiscated by the police. Initially, the bicycle and the vehicle were brought to the Galas police station, but they were both released. What does the law say about that for the purpose, for the benefit of viewers?
All right. So if the vehicle was used as an instrument in the commission of the crime, and that is very material, no, that phrase. It has to be an instrument or an implement used in the commission of the crime. Then that particular instrument should now be kept for purposes of presentation of evidence later on. Now, if the charge is grave threat, very clearly, the car is not necessary in committing the crime. If the charge was slander by deed, the car was not necessary. It was not an instrument in committing the crime. But if the charge is reckless endangerment, or no, there's no such crime here, no. But if it is reckless imprudence resulting in damage to property or resulting in slight physical injuries, then the crime is considered as an instrument or an implement of the crime, and therefore there can be a basis to detain it. But in my own personal experience, my 35 years of experience, in a situation where the vehicle is clearly established not to have been used in committing the crime. Like, for example, there was a motor vehicle accident. Then all that is needed is really just to take photographs of the vehicle. And then already make an admission that this is the condition of the vehicle, these were the damages sustained, these are the dents, these are the scratches, this is the vehicle per se, because the license plate is there. Then there can be a motion for the discharge or release of the vehicle to the owner, because the photographs themselves can already stand as evidence without having to keep the vehicle in the custody of the court.
Okay, well, unfortunately, we've run out of time. Attorney Raymond Fortun, thank you very much for your insight, your legal opinions, your lecture this morning. And I do hope that at the end of the day, more than punishment, we all learn from this experience. If you don't have serious threats, don't carry a gun. If you have serious threats in your life, stay home or get out of the country. But whatever you do, do not take the law into your own hands, because the law has a way of biting back. Anyway, thank you. God bless you, Attorney Raymond Fortun.
Thank you very much, Cito, for this chance, and good morning to everybody out there.
Okay, that's Attorney Raymond Fortun. Let's now go to our blessing for the week. And it comes from, okay, there we go. 2 Corinthians chapter 13, verse 14. May the grace of the Lord Jesus Christ, the love of God, and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit be with you all. Thank you for joining us today. And I pray that we would all learn our lessons from this episode. And if you would, pray for Mr. Gonzales as well, and his victim, and everyone else who may be dealing with certain things that have been very difficult for them, and that they won't escalate into bigger problems. I'm Cito Beltran. Thank you. God bless all of you. Please keep us in your prayers, and please keep it here on One News.